Happy Friday, everybody. So I had originally planned to continue the incorporation series, and we're going to continue that next week, but I thought it'd be pretty important to talk about something that may affect some of you or people that you know. So there was an article in CBC earlier this week, which essentially, the heading was CRA is sending details of bank accounts to the IRS that don't have to be reported. So for those of you that don't know, all U.S. citizens, as well as green card holders, must file a U.S. tax return, income tax return, as well as all kinds of reporting in order to comply with the IRS rules. The U.S. is one of the few jurisdictions in the world that require filing of taxes not solely based on residency, like in Canada, but on citizenship. So what's the big deal? Well, first of all, what is the CRA disclosing to the IRS? Well, the CRA disclosed 901,000 bank accounts to the IRS where the person may have been a U.S. citizen. What's the problem? Well, first of all, out of those 901,000, it seemed that 615,000 had bank balances of under $50,000, which is below the threshold, and they weren't supposed to disclose this. So something is going on, and it seems that the CRA and the IRS are communicating more and more closely ever since FATCA back in 2014, I believe. So what's the issue? All right. The penalties are severe. If a U.S. citizen or green card holder holds a foreign bank account, they must file a foreign bank account report. You may have heard the term FBAR. It's not an overly complicated form to file, but what the IRS requires is that you disclose the name of the account holder, of course, the bank, the address, the bank account number, as well as the highest balance during the year. So what if you don't file this? Penalty is $10,000. That's a huge penalty for something you may not even be aware of. So I figured today what I would do is discuss a little bit of what the requirements are to file in the U.S. Not so much for you to be able to navigate these crazy waters of U.S. tax filings, but more to give you a checklist of things that you need to be aware of if you or somebody you know is a U.S. citizen or green card holder and is not compliant with the IRS. So first of all, if you have 10% or more shares in a private company, many people have companies, whether they do it for their own operating business or they have a holding company and so forth, there's a form that they need to file, which is a 5471. And again, if you don't file that form, $10,000. Now these are disclosure forms, which means you're not paying tax on that. What you're doing is you're just disclosing to the IRS, hey, I have this company in which I own 10%. Therefore, when I file my tax return, pay attention that I've reported the income. So what the IRS is trying to do is basically figure out if there's any tax cheats out there. It's been my experience that most of the disclosures required by the IRS for foreigners, that's U.S. citizens or green card holders that do not reside in the U.S., is to determine if they're not trying to escape U.S. tax. For most of us living in Canada, we're paying our taxes, everything is legitimate, everything is on the up and up, so it's not like you're not paying your tax, because you wouldn't pay any tax in the U.S. regardless, because the tax credit that the U.S. would give you is more than sufficient because Canada's taxes are higher. But it's these disclosure forms that catch everybody offside. Another disclosure form is 3520 and 3528. This is basically if you have a TFSA or an RESP. An RESP is interesting because it could be a parent or a grandparent holding it for a child or a grandchild, and it's completely tax sheltered in Canada, but in the U.S. there's a requirement to file a form, and you guessed it again, $10,000 penalty if you don't file the form. A TFSA, a tax-free savings account, is interesting because whereas it is tax-free in Canada, it is not tax-free in the U.S. In fact, if you earned income in it, you must report it to the U.S. if you're a U.S. citizen or green card holder. And if you don't file the form, guess what? The famous $10,000 penalty. You see how these penalties start to accumulate? So imagine if you have a case study where somebody's just filing your tax return, has never filed any of these other forms, not even aware of them, and the IRS comes and contacts them. All of a sudden, you could find yourself with 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 of penalties. I've seen cases like these. Another situation is if you have mutual funds, so a U.S. citizen or green card holder living outside of the U.S. holding mutual funds outside of a registered plan, outside of an RRSP, will be subject to filing Form 8621, which once again carries a penalty of, you guessed it, $10,000 for not filing it. Moreover, you have to pay income tax, a special tax on this income, because it's considered a passive foreign investment company, and you're actually going to have more tax than you should pay simply by holding a mutual fund. So I do a lot of U.S. tax work, and got a lot of people come to me who either may have lived here their entire lives and they were born in the U.S., or they haven't been in the U.S. in over 20 years. And they hear about these things and they get very, very nervous because they suddenly realize, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? So, first of all, not to worry, there is a procedure to be able to comply with the IRS, catch up on all of these misfilings, and be able to do it in a way that there's no interest and penalties that'll be charged. So we do this often. It's a streamlined offshore program. And if anybody falls into this situation or anybody's concerned, feel free to reach out to my office and we can definitely have a conversation about it to see in your situation if it applies. Another thing that's really important is if you're holding partnerships. If you're a member of a partnership, there's other forms you have to file. So in essence, what somebody needs to realize is if you're a U.S. citizen, basically you shouldn't be investing in all of the different investment options that the rest of the Canadian citizens are investing in. So my default would be no TFSA. That's not tax advantageous for you because you got to pay taxes in the U.S. Definitely the RRSP is going to be a problem. There's a potential for double taxation on that. The mutual funds outside of an RRSP is a disaster. You're going to be paying well above 60% income tax on that. And therefore, you need to really make sure that your investment advisor is in communication with a tax specialist, U.S. tax specialist, to make sure that your portfolio is structured properly. For this reason, we have a lot of individuals who, when they realize the onerous compliance requirements to prepare these returns and so forth, they decide to renounce their U.S. citizenship, which is something, of course, that can be done, but you need to be fully compliant with the IRS and file 5 years of tax returns in order to make the application with the embassy. I've worked with many individuals to do that as well, and that's something that goes through pretty quickly. So just in summary, if somebody's not compliant with the U.S., or if they filed tax returns but I had no idea about all these forms they need to file, well then please have them reach out to my office and we can definitely help them out. Under the Streamlined Offshore Amnesty Program, they don't have to go back and file 20 years of tax returns because that would cost a small fortune. The IRS basically says you go back and you file 3 years of delinquent tax returns and 6 years of FBAR, Foreign Bank Account Reporting. And by doing that, they consider you fully compliant, and moving forwards, you can have peace of mind. So, if you never file, you're never off the hook. And what's concerning to me is that with this sharing of information, it seems to be that the IRS and Canada are moving to a place where they're going to start investigating people for non-filing. Now, here's the really important thing to retain. If you're contacted by the IRS for failure to file, this amnesty program is off the table, which means now you likely will be assessed interest and penalties, and you're going to have a really hard time trying to explain the reason for not filing. It's not certain they're going to assess you every penalty. You will need to engage a U.S. lawyer to go to the tax court or deal with the IRS to be able to get an amnesty on that, and that's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of headache. So you're much better off going through the streamlined program that's available now, getting it done, and moving forwards. So I thought it was important because I saw this article from CBC. It's the kind of things that catch my eye all the time. I'm always on top of this. We do, maybe 10, 15 of these streamlines, every year. A lot of tax returns are coming in to do this, and I just thought, as a public notice, I'd share this with you. If it doesn't apply to you, great. But maybe now that you know about it, and from conversations with people that are in your family or in your circle of friends, you would bring it up because so many people don't know about this, and it would be a real shame if they had to pay, tens of thousands of dollars of penalties over something they didn't know. So happy Friday, everybody. It's a rainy Friday today, but that's okay. It's going to clean up all of the, the snow that's left over and so forth, and we're looking forward to a pleasant, sunny April. Have a great day, and talk to everybody next week. Bye-bye.